Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is April 1st, 2019, April Fool's Day. And boy, do we have a couple fools here. Say it ain't so, Uncle Joe Biden, and then some updates on Brexit. And I got to tell you, I don't know who the bigger fools are, if it's the UK Parliament or if it's Uncle Joe Biden. I'll let you guys decide. But first, to our buddies across the pond. So the saga continues. And just for a recap of what took place last week, we had the indicative votes whereby members of Parliament put forth 8 additional items on the table to see what might take place. Is it going to be a second referendum? Is it going to be a no-deal Brexit? Is it going to be a customs union? Is it going to be a softer Brexit? Yada, yada, yada. There were 8 items up for vote. Not a single one of them passed. Not a single one. So then we were left with, well, now we still have Prime Minister Theresa May. We still have her deal that can be put up to a vote for a third time. It was defeated in an historic defeat back in January. It changed slightly, and that got shot down last month. And now it was put forth for a third time on Friday, and it was shot down for the third time. So that left us with today. Given the parliamentary process and what Parliament agreed to, John Bercow, the Speaker of the House, came to the decision that the Parliament today would vote on 4 of the 8 issues. It was at his discretion. He put forth 4 of the issues. They all got shot down this evening as well. So twice. You have Theresa May's deal shot down 3 times, and you have these indicative votes all shot down twice. 8 last week, 4 of the remaining 8 today shot down. So where does this leave us? It leaves us where we were last week, the exact same place. It is more likely now that there will be a no-deal Brexit come April 12th, 11 days from now. It will be a hard Brexit, a no-deal Brexit. That's fine with me. I don't say that because I'm across the pond here in the US of A. It's because this is what the people voted for in June of 2016. Shame on Parliament. Shame on the fools in Parliament who couldn't get together over nearly a 3-year period to get a deal done and fulfill the wishes and the will of the British people. Now, the other thing that you have to keep in mind is the fact that most members in Parliament voted to remain. They did not want to leave the EU. So here you have these people brokering a deal to leave the EU when in fact their personal goals, their personal vote was to remain. This is a huge conflict of interest. That's why I give Theresa May, despite the fact that she too voted to remain, wanted to remain in the EU, she at least rhetorically has said, look, we must value the institutions of democracy, and we must honor the vote and the will of the people on this referendum. And so you may not like the deal that she put forth, but guess what? That's the only deal. That's the only agreement in this divorce. You got the husband and you got the wife. This is what was agreed to. You don't like it? Well, then you just leave the house. You're making each other miserable? Just leave. That's where we are now. Now, we still have 11 days, so we truly are in the 11th hour, 50th minute. This is where we are. Are there other things that can transpire? Of course. Could there be some other vote that is put forth? Yes. Reading some articles here, we might have Theresa May, her deal, come forward for a 4th time. A 4th time. Now, in her credit, this isn't much credit, but in her credit, every time that it has been voted on, the margin of loss has diminished. So will there be a victory this time for her deal if it is put forth for a 4th time? And then, of course, you have this evening in Parliament, the leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, saying, well, look, Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister can have her deal put forth 3 times, why can't we have these indicative votes put forth 3 times? So it's an interesting question. It's ridiculous because the other thing that you have to remember with these indicative votes, they do not have the force of law behind them. So even if one of them passed on this second go-around, or perhaps maybe there will be a third, we don't know yet. It doesn't seem likely, but a whole host of other things didn't seem likely either, but here we are. So don't count it out. So what will happen, even if one of them passes? Because it does not carry the force of law with it. Will Theresa May and her government say, all right, we'll stick with it? That's what the House voted for. Or will she say, no, nonsense, it doesn't carry the force of law? This is the only deal that has been agreed to between us, this government in the UK, and the EU. This is what we're going with. If not, then it's a no-deal Brexit on April 12th. This seems more and more likely to be the case, that it will be a no-deal, hard Brexit come April 12th. Now, this is a true shame, again, that the fools in Parliament, these politicians, just like politicians all over the world, this is not unique to the United States of America. This is the tale as old as time. This is politics, and it's a shame. Because nobody could come to an agreement because you have a lot of people in Parliament, as I stated earlier, that voted to remain. So they're at odds. They are trying every little trick they can. Now, they'll put on a face that they are trying to be, statesmanlike, that they are trying to weigh all of the emotions and logic of the constituents of those who voted for departure and those who voted to remain. This is a whole bunch of hogwash, in my opinion. That's the referendum. You put it to a vote. Too bad. Too bad. If everybody could continuously vote until you get your outcome that you want, you'll never get anywhere. There's always going to be a winner and loser. That's how it is. The Super Bowl analogy I gave. All right? One team wins. Half the stadium's upset. Half the country might be upset. It doesn't mean you say, okay, well, we'll come back tomorrow, guys, and we'll see again. That's not how it works. You have the vote. You go through with it. Now, the fact that it is difficult to get through this, you should have seen this coming. Now, whether you saw this exact Shakespearean tragedy play out, or comedy, however you want to look at it, if you didn't foresee this, I'm with you. I'm with you. This is beyond tragic. The way these politicians have behaved over the course of this last 2.5 going on 3 years. What else do they need? Now it's just time to roll up your sleeves and say, all right, it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be a little chaotic here for the near term, but we will figure this out. Same thing with the divorce. If you can't live in the same house, one of you goes. It's not easy. You don't like it, but you're driving each other more insane than you already have. It's not good for anybody. You'll work it out after the fact. That's where we are. To come up with a deal in 11 days, I just don't think they're going to do it because they didn't do it in 3 years. Not to mention the underhandedness that may very well be taking place within the bureaucracy of the European Union. Because I've stated it here many, many times before, that the EU would have wanted one of two outcomes. A very bumpy and hard Brexit to send a message to the other members of EU who might be thinking of leaving. Look at the chaos that takes place if you decide to leave us. Look how bad it is for the UK, one of the largest economies in the world. It ain't pretty, so don't you even think about leaving. Or, through some sort of backroom deal politicking, they could have somehow overthrown Theresa May, got another general election, got another second referendum, and hopefully got their way, and the majority of the British people would have voted to remain. Those are basically the two outcomes that the EU would have been looking at. Because that is what the EU would have wanted. It just makes logical sense. Either a hard Brexit to send a message to the rest of the EU members who might be thinking of leaving, or to remain, because they didn't want them to leave to begin with. Because the EU has a history of sending votes back to countries who didn't vote the way that they wanted them to. So this is the same playbook. The same playbook. Ironically, when you look at other members of Parliament, again, the Scottish National Party, you have one of the leaders of that party standing up following the vote, claiming that the people, the Scottish people, may very well vote for their independence because they were under the impression when they entered the UK that they would be remaining in the European Union. He feels that the Parliament does not listen to the wishes and desires of the Scottish people. This is a rather ironic twist in this story, because that is the exact reason, sir, why the British people in a majority in 2016 voted to leave the European Union, because they feel that their voices have not been heard by the no-named, no-faced bureaucrats in the EU. They feel that their sovereignty has been usurped. The same way that the leader of the Scottish National Party feels is the same way the majority of the British people felt in 2016, which led to the Brexit. I'm telling you, this is Shakespearean. All of these plot twists. You can decide whether this is a tragedy or a comedy. But it's most definitely one of them. Maybe a dark comedy. It's sickening, it's disgusting, and I've said it here many times before, this better not go to a second referendum. Because this is not just headline news. Believe me when I tell you, this is historic. Because should this go to a second referendum, and should it somehow get defeated, meaning there is now a majority in the Remain column, this will go down for one of the history books. This will be a death nail in the coffin for our institution of democracy. I'm not being dramatic here. I'm telling you, this is what it is. Now, a lot of people on the news media, especially those who follow the financial news media, a lot of pundits and analysts get on and just say, this was a story back in 2016, 2017. This is nothing. No, that is not correct. This is very much something. This is history unfolding before our eyes. Because if this does not go the way of the will of the people, their vote in 2016, look out, because there aren't going to be that many more democracies left in this world. So I will continue to keep you guys updated. It's going to be interesting to see what takes place tomorrow. What does the Speaker of the House do? Will he put this forward for a third vote, any of these indicative votes that again failed for 2 times? Or will he put forward Theresa May's deal, which already failed 3 times, and said he wouldn't put it forth the 3rd time, but did, because of this tragedy, this black comedy that is unfolding before our very eyes. This is very serious. You have to pay attention. And I'm here to keep you guys in the loop. Now, back home, crazy Uncle Joe Biden. I told this guy, I really tried helping him out not too long ago. Remember I said, go back to Delaware and take a nap? Remember I said that? It wasn't too long ago. I was trying to help the guy out. I don't care for him. I don't know him personally, but I don't like his policies. But I was trying to help him out. Come on, Joe, you're old. You've done your time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Go back to Delaware, take a nap, do us all a favor. Well, if he would have taken my advice, he might not be in the news. And he's in the news not for something that he wants to be in the news for, because over the weekend, you've had allegations that he inappropriately touched a woman, invaded her personal space against her wishes, against her will. And then it was either late yesterday evening or early today, a second woman came forward and basically said the same thing. Now, those of you who follow this podcast, you know what I'm about to say. Those of you joining for the first time, this goes without saying here on the Capital News Podcast. Every American is innocent until proven guilty. These are allegations. These are allegations. But from a political standpoint, my goodness, is this juicy. Because here you have these holier-than-thou Democrats, and even Republicans, but right now it's on the Democrat side, who attacked and continue to attack the character and the actions and the words of candidate Trump and now President Donald Trump. Here is a huge difference in how this is going to play out, because I think this is going to undo Joe Biden. He's done. Again, going back to that podcast where I told him to go back to Delaware and take a nap, I told you guys he didn't have a chance. He's an old white guy. He's an old white guy. We already got an old white guy. It's Crazy Bernie. And Crazy Bernie gets a lot of money from the lunatics. Okay? Crazy Joe Biden, crazy Uncle Joe Biden, he can get some money because he's establishment, but he's just an old white guy. He ain't going to get it. Now he really ain't going to get it. All right? So here's the difference when you look at somebody like a Joe Biden versus a Donald Trump. Donald Trump, love him or hate him, is a very shameless individual. He does what he wants. He says what he wants. A lot of people love Donald Trump because of that, and a lot of people hate Donald Trump because of that. I don't care what side of the coin you come down on. That's just a fact of the matter. He does what he wants. He says what he wants. That was a huge appeal. That's what a lot of people in his base love and admire about him. Okay, yeah, he says some things we know he's crazy. We know he's off the cuff. We know he's just doing this. We know he's a showman, blah, 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 blah. That's what he gets away with. That's what he gets away with. He never came out and claimed to be holier than thou. He never said he was a perfect man. He never said he was an angel. He's a multi-billionaire. He's a playboy. You don't like him? Don't vote for him. That's how it works. But don't come out there and pretend to be holier than thou. Because look at the hypocrisy, and look how the shoe is now on the other foot. I mean, this goes back to the whole Me Too movement, remember? This was as left-wing as it gets. Hollywood, actors, big actors, movie stars, producers, Matt Lauer on NBC Today, Moonves, CBS president. All these guys are going down, not just because of allegations and accusations. I mean, some of these guys got clipped. So you know there was something more there behind the story. Or at least enough to say, all right, we got to get this guy off the air. We got to get this guy to resign. This guy's going to jail. This guy's going to court. Whole host of issues. None of this ever happened with Donald Trump. And there were some very, let's just say graphic things that were said about the president, whether they came out of his mouth or not. They are not going to be repeated on this program. You all remember that from a few years ago. You know what they are. But nevertheless, Donald Trump is now the president of the United States. And I continue to say he will win in 2020 because this is who he's up against. This is who he's up against. Now, Joe Biden, and you can most definitely find these now because of all of this news that's taking place over these past couple of days. But Joe Biden has a lot of pictures that are very, let's just say creepy, for the lack of a better word. I think that's descriptive enough of it. Whether it's with adult women or young children, both boys and girls, it's definitely inappropriate from just the standpoint of it looking creepy. Now, of course, a photo can always grab anybody in an awkward position. It doesn't mean that that's where they were. It's just a snap point in time. But there are enough photos out there where it's quite obvious that Joe is just doing some stuff that most people just would not do with every ordinary day people. Sometimes it's standing behind a woman with his hands on her shoulders. I mean, maybe that's something you do with your wife or your daughters or somebody you have a very close relationship to, but Joe just seems to do this with everybody. Now, maybe that's acceptable to some people, but clearly it wasn't acceptable to everybody, and now some people are speaking up. The other point I want to mention here before I forget is this, with this whole Me Too movement, people who come forward should be heard. Some of this is most definitely going to be true. I don't mean that it's necessarily against Joe Biden, but when you have enough allegations, one of them is going to be true against somebody, somewhere, sometime. That is likely to take place. My concern with this whole Me Too movement, or whatever you want to call it, is that the pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction much too quickly. And I think what is likely to take place is this will end up backfiring on a lot of these women, and perhaps men who get involved with it, but primarily women, obviously. What do I mean by this? Well, from a professional career standpoint, if this becomes a hypersensitive issue nationwide, a lot of businesses might become very wary of hiring women. I mean, we still have a male-dominant workforce in this country. That's just the history, not only of this country, but of the world. That's what it is. You don't like it? I don't care. Go ahead and try to advocate for laws, this, that, or the other. That's what it is. So now you might have a lot of hiring managers say, look, all right, we wanted the whole diversity thing, blah, 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 blah. Whole bunch of women, minorities, men, group them all together, mix them up. Okay, it'll be the best thing ever. All right. Trying to be politically correct. I want the best people. I don't care who they are. I want the best people. But that's not how our system works. It's not off of the best people or the content. It's what's the color of their skin? What sex are they? That's what it is. not off of merit or content. What's the color of their skin? They a man or a woman? Or are they trans or whatever the hell you want to be? Okay? I'm a tree today. Put me down. I'll be the best tree you've ever seen. That's where we're going. All right? So people, hiring managers might say, you know what, look, we live in a hypersensitive world. I got a bunch of men here. You know, if I bring women into this, what's going to happen? Now, all of these guys are outstanding guys. They're good guys, but I mean, maybe just a joke goes the wrong way. Maybe somebody gets a little rambunctious for some reason. Something happens. I don't need that risk on my watch. That could be the calculus that ends up taking place. And as a result, you have fewer women in the workforce. This ends up backfiring. I stand behind any woman who wants to accuse somebody if in fact it was the truth. I am here for the truth. Do not do this to extort somebody. Do not do this for attention, your 15 minutes. Do not do this in an attempt to ruin somebody's life. It is unacceptable. It's disgusting. If it's true, it's a whole other story. May justice be with you. But we have swung, I think, too far, too quickly in the opposite direction. And I think women have to be very, very careful here. Very careful here, because it can affect them professionally and it can affect them personally, because you never know now, a whole bunch of young single men or middle-aged men, makes no difference, who are going out dating. I mean, are they going to have legal documents with them on the date? Am I allowed to kiss you? Yes. Sign here, initial here, date here, blood here. Let's go. Come on. Can I hold your hand? Can I touch your leg? Sign off here, initial here, date. Come on, let's go. I mean, that's how ridiculous this is all getting, because all it takes is an allegation to ruin somebody's life, to ruin somebody's marriage, to have their children look at them completely different, to perhaps despise them depending on how far it gets taken, to have them ruined financially, professionally. This is serious. We live in a world of social media. We live in a world of 24/7 news media. We live in a world of be first, not right, just be first. Get the story out there. We don't care about the facts. We don't care about the truth. Just be first. Well, in that whole entire process, you're going to have a whole bunch of people have their lives ruined because of that. This program is about the truth. Will we make mistakes? Yes, we will. I'm not a journalist. I'm a commentator. I will make mistakes. I will admit those mistakes. If and when they happen. When they happen. I will do my best. That's why I don't jump on a whole bunch of stories. That's why I say allegations. The man is entitled his due process. He is innocent until proven guilty. He can come out and give his comments. Well, I didn't believe that I did anything wrong. Well, that's what you believe. She believes otherwise. So again, he said, she said story. Regardless, from the political standpoint, he's done. He's done, because you had the other news out with him going on his quote-unquote apology tour with the whole Anita Hill thing back with the Justice Clarence Thomas hearing, saying, well, you know, listen to me, guys, listen to me. This is Joe Biden. I'm serious. A whole bunch of old white guys, a whole bunch of white guys were listening to this African-American woman. Well, wait a minute, Joe, what are you saying? That was in fact the case. The Senate is still majority white men. That's what it is. That doesn't mean you've been keeping out white women or black women. It just means that white women or black women haven't been running, or they don't have the ideas that are attractive enough to their constituents. That's their problem, not yours. They'll get there. Maybe they don't want to run. That's their issue, not ours. What else is he saying? A whole bunch of white guys can't ask a black woman questions? Can't make a decision that affects a black person or black people? What are we saying then? What's the logic tell us? Well, then, all right, all white men, and I guess all white women too, would have to throw their hands up. This is something that would disproportionately affect African Americans. Therefore, only the African Americans in Congress can put forth legislation and vote on it. No white person can vote on it. I don't know about Asians or Hispanics, but no white people can vote on it. That's what Joe Biden's telling you. Just take the logic out to its logical conclusion. It's not that difficult. Conversely, what would that mean? If you had a law that would somehow disproportionately affect white people, whatever this means, I don't know. This is the loony bin. This is the left. This is why they're all lunatics. So let's just say, in their logic, their realm of logic, there is a law, an issue that disproportionately affects white people. Would that then mean that there could be no black legislators voting for this? No Hispanics? No Asians? This is for the white folk? Let them deal with it? This is for the black folk? Let them deal with it? Is that not the definition of racism? Basing decisions based off of race? Joe Biden is done. Who's the bigger fool today? Let me know. I'll continue this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a pleasure having you. As always, please like, share, subscribe, get the word out. I'll catch you here next time. This is the Capitol News. I am Alex Koritis. Godspeed.